Hey everyone, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. I'm your host, Tony Edward. On your way in, please hit that subscribe button as well as the thumbs up button and leave a comment below. If you're listening on a podcast platform such as Spotify or Apple, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating and follow. Folks, I hope you're all doing well. I took the weekend off here in the United States. It was Memorial Day weekend, so a 3-day weekend. A lot of rain here in the Northeast, but we're back to some sunshine now. But there's not really a lot to talk about as it relates to the price. We saw a lot of chop action. There was some fake outs with the talks of a deal between Iran and the United States and that situation coming to some sort of resolution. But then it flipped back again. So the markets are just been going back and forth like a ping pong. And in fact, Bitcoin right now is still holding that support level of $75,000. So that's a good sign. However, there's a lot of weakness. The MACD still in control by the bears, and the RSI in the daily chart still has room to run down before it hits the oversold zone. Now, it doesn't have to go there, but the point is there's room for it to fall. And I've been highlighting there's weakness in the stock market. Pretty much the bears are in control on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. However, the stock market did hit a new all-time high. So depending on what the stock market does here, that could really help crypto. Obviously, if the stock market goes up, that's good for Bitcoin and altcoins. But not looking too good, but still we are at that crossroads point, which I know is annoying because it's like no man's land, right? Which way are we going? Because if Bitcoin was to break out, it could get through the $82,000 resistance level, break through the 200-day moving average. If it was to break down, it could go test the lower levels of this rising channel here of $71,000. And that puts it at risk to break down and maybe go retest 58K, which was the low we hit in February, or go to lower lows, right? So this is where we're going to have to be patient. Now, on the weekly time frame, the bulls are still in control. So that's a good sign, but they are losing momentum. So again, we need Bitcoin to really have an impulsive bounce for this rally to continue and for altcoins to follow. We saw some altcoins had woken up, but again, I'm going to continue to watch the stock market here, and hopefully it flips back bullish from a MACD perspective, and we can continue. Now, I just mentioned, the fake out we saw over the weekend with the talks of the Iran war peace deal, and, shorts got liquidated, and it's been back and forth. Then longs get liquidated. So this is why I don't use leverage, guys. Markets are going nuts right now with the Iran war situation. Now, there is some selling on the ETF front. Now, this is not unusual. ETFs are living vehicles, investment vehicles, and there's going to be inflows and outflows over time. There's going to be ebbs and flows. This is the nature of such product. But there was a big batch selling recently. Someone sold $1.3 billion of IBIT, BlackRock's ETF, in a single block trade this morning. So that's 29 million shares. So the price of Bitcoin dropped, but not by a lot. So it really absorbed this selling pressure, which is very good, very, very good. So I like that. And then I want to share something from Analyst Crypto currently, who has a great channel, by the way. And he's been sharing this respective chart showing the different scenarios, 3 scenarios. One is a very short bear market where we start rallying to new all-time highs this year. He's saying that's unlikely. His base case scenario is a shallow bear market. So on the trajectory we're on right now, Bitcoin continues up to about 100K or a little bit above, then corrects heavily, but not to lower lows. It goes back to around the 60K range. So essentially touching those levels it did in February, where we touched 58K as a bottom. So he's saying that's his base case. I'm also in that camp that this is the base case, a shallow bear market. But then there's the possibility of a normal bear market where we continue to go lower, potentially down to 40K. Again, these things are not guaranteed, but I think the higher probability falls on the shallow bear market scenario here. So let's hope that plays out and not a normal bear market where we go lower. But anything is possible. Is just waiting to see what plays out here. Look, if Bitcoin is going to follow this 4-year cycle and supposedly the bottom is coming later this year, again, I don't believe Trump wants to go into the midterm elections with crypto down, and crypto generally follows the stock market with the stock market down as well, right? That would be not good unless he just doesn't care, even though he has his Fed chair in place. So this is where we're going to have to wait and see how things play out. There's nothing guaranteed here, but I'm still thinking, from a thesis standpoint, because Trump cares about the market so much, and obviously he cares about crypto now and getting the Clarity Act through, that he's not going to want to see the markets in the dumps. So this is where I'm leaning more towards the shallow bear market case, where we're not crashing to lows and everybody's panicking, but we retest 60K, and then we're ripping into Q4, possibly to new all-time highs. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Now, despite the market volatility and some outflows from BlackRock's ETF, there are still buyers. Strive, which is a Bitcoin treasury company, acquires 1,109 Bitcoin, raising total holdings to 16,500 coins. So that's a lot of buying right there. And then on the Ethereum front, Tom Lee's fund strat, they continue to buy. And in fact, they did their largest purchase since December. So they bought 111,942 ETH, worth about $237 million. So they now have 4.47% of Ethereum circulating supply, which is wild. Now, the big difference between ETH and Bitcoin is obviously as you hold ETH, you can stake it and earn a reward. So there's revenue being generated, which can keep you afloat during the bear market and when the price is down. This is why I'm so concerned about Michael Saylor and Strategy, because they're using a lot of debt. But look, if he's able to make it work and he's able to get through this bear market, then that's totally fine. I don't want a collapse to happen. I'm just highlighting as a student of history and markets, when you have this amount of leverage, it's so risky, right? We've seen the blowups, 2008, 2001, and much more. So this is where we got to be careful. Now, speaking of Ethereum Treasury, Joe Lubin's backed Ethereum Treasury firm Sharplink to join the Russell indexes. This is very significant. Being able, as a treasury company, specifically just focus on adding ETH to your balance sheet, being added to one of the stock market indexes is incredible. So the Russell 2000 obviously is something we usually look at when we're trying to measure what may come next for altcoins, right? Because it's kind of all the other stocks outside the Mag 7 and all the big companies. So this is very, very interesting. So the inclusion would attract fresh passive inflows from indexing tracking funds, while the firm's stock tanked 95% from its peak over the past year. Now, this should come as no surprise because the value of these assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, even XRP, Solana, they're all down, right? So it would make sense that the stocks went down, but these companies continue to accumulate. Again, some of them are staking to earn those rewards, and they're playing the long game like Tom Lee. And hopefully it works out. We obviously don't want anything bad to happen, because I think this could be cataclysmic for crypto. And hopefully, we get the Clarity Act this year. Markets rally really nice. ETH and the altcoins can, start hitting some highs, and these companies can get back into green here. But this is certainly a big win for an Ethereum treasury company. Now we have some XRP news. So the XRP Ledger could close its biggest DeFi gap if the new AMM automated market maker amendment passes. So we continue to see a lot of developments on the XRP Ledger. And folks, this week I'm going to be interviewing one of the developers at Ripple who's working specifically on the XRP Ledger, and we're going to talk about all these things. So a new draft amendment, AMM swappable curves, could upgrade the XRP Ledger's automated market maker by adding 3 new curve types: constant product, concentrated liquidity, and stable swap, with a programmable smart AMM to follow. The change is designed to let liquidity providers choose how their pools price assets, improving capital efficiency for both volatile pairs and near one-to-one assets like stablecoins, while leaving existing pools on the current constant product model. The proposal comes as more than $3 billion in tokenized real-world assets, including a recent Ripple JP Morgan pilot, sit on the XRP Ledger, but its impact on XRP and DeFi activity will depend on an amendment process that can take months and is not assured of passing. So the development continues, guys. This is what you want to see. Nothing happens overnight. Sometimes these things take years, but this is where we're taking our bets and having the long-term view. Now, moving ahead, Coinbase's Base launches AI tool for ChatGPT to manage crypto wallets and DeFi apps. Many of you know Base is an Ethereum layer 2 built by Coinbase, and there's no token at this point, but they are thinking about launching a token, and they continue to expand their utility and use cases. So this is really great. Guys like Jesse Pollock and the others are doing some great work. So Coinbase's Ethereum Layer 2 network base launched Base MCP, a new AI integration that lets users connect their crypto wallets to AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude to send funds, swap tokens, track portfolios, and interact with DeFi apps using simple chat prompts. The product launches with integrations for protocols including Uniswap, Morpho, and Moonwell as base bets that AI agents and conversational interfaces could become a major gateway for how people use crypto and discover on-chain apps. I think they're spot on. I think AI agents are going to be a big part of the economy. Now, that's not going to happen overnight. And you're going to see stable coins and blockchain rails being used for payments and much more. So kudos to the folks at Coinbase. They're doing some great stuff here with Base. And recently, my co-host Amanda and I interviewed one of the folks, the head of growth at Base. So we talked a lot about all the cool things that are being built. So that interview should be published either later this week or early next week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Folks, quick word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by BitGo, the trusted infrastructure behind the digital asset economy. If you're serious about crypto, whether you're an investor, institution, or building in this space, you already know security, compliance, and execution are everything. And that's exactly what BitGo delivers. With over a decade of experience and 5,500 plus institutional clients across 100 plus countries, BitGo provides a full suite of services, including qualified custody, trading, staking, financing, and stablecoin infrastructure, all in one platform. Let's break it down. Want to launch crypto services fast? BitGo's crypto as a service lets banks, fintechs, and platforms go live in as little as a couple of months without dealing with complex licensing or infrastructure. If you're looking to launch a stablecoin, BitGo offers a complete stablecoin as a service platform from reserves and smart contracts to compliance, built to align with the new U.S. regulatory framework that is the Genius Act. Want to earn rewards on your crypto? BitGo runs one of the largest institutional staking platforms with tens of billions staked across 50 plus networks, all while your assets stay securely in qualified custody. Need deep liquidity and execution? Their trading platform aggregates liquidity across 30 plus venues, giving you better pricing and the ability to trade directly from custody. No pre-funding required for approved clients. And if you need capital, BitGo offers crypto-backed financing, so you can unlock liquidity without selling your assets. So here's the bottom line. BitGo is one of the first federally chartered digital asset infrastructure companies offering regulated, insured custody and a platform built for institutions, but accessible to forward-thinking players across the space. So whether you're scaling a fintech, managing a fund, or building the future of finance, BitGo gives you all the tools that you need to do this securely, compliantly, and at scale. So learn more at bitgo.com and see why the biggest players in crypto trust BitGo.
Okay, moving ahead, the SEC delayed a plan that would have given crypto firms broad exemptions to trade tokenized versions of US stocks. The exemption was originally expected by May 18th. So I think we touched a little bit on this before. We heard from Hester Peirce and so forth. It seems like the SEC is crawling before they walk and before they run here, which I think makes sense. So let's see what they're able to come out with, maybe something a little more fine-tuned. So we got a note here that stock exchange officials and other participants raised concerns after learning the details, specifically a provision that would allow trading of third-party tokens issued without the backing or consent of the public companies involved. So the folks have to be careful here, the regulators as well as the companies building, because what you don't want to happen is this thing to launch in a bad way and it's a house of cards and it collapses and that sets us back. We need to make sure this is right, because if you're going to put all these assets on chain, you got to make sure it's done right. You got to have the one-to-one backing, right? The infrastructure has to be there, has to be cleared, no ambiguity, who's custodying, and make sure these tokenized versions are not minted unless the actual asset exists, right? We don't want another FTX and all kinds of madness, right? So I'm glad the SEC and these folks are taking it slow. As much as I want to get these things out and they're up and running, they got to make sure they do it right. And even if it takes another year, or even two, get it right. I would rather it goes smoothly, we launch properly, and there's no collapses. And look, there are people waiting in the corners here for something bad to happen. Look at this. Brad Sherman, the Shermanator. Many of you may recall he and Elizabeth Warren, Gary Gensler formed the Axis of Evil under the Biden administration to attack crypto. Well, he just sent out mailers that are crypto specific, essentially bashing crypto, bashing Trump, right? Saying Trump is doing this with crypto, crypto's a scam. So you can see he's trying to say crypto's a boogeyman and, putting out false information there. And it's the nasty game of politics. But this is what I'm talking about. These guys are not giving up. You thought they were dead, right? In a sense of their whole anti-crypto army. You thought the anti-crypto army was dead. Still alive here, right? So you got Brad Sherman, you got Elizabeth Warren with her same old BS. Plus, you got the actor Ben McKenzie from the OC and Gotham. He's out there pushing that crypto's a scam and all these things. He's got his book, he's got a documentary and all these things. And I've seen, over the years, the three of them have kind of coordinated, right? Their campaigns, their anti-crypto campaigns, they always happen around the same time. Ben McKenzie always shows up in the bear market when the price is down, right? To try to fool the public. See, it's down. I told you. But it's like markets are cyclical, right? So this is where we got to keep fighting and we got to watch out for this nonsense that we're seeing here because the game of politics is being played out here. And, speaking of regulation, Clarity Act could spark a boom in crypto yield as a service. So I think we all know with Clarity Act passing, there's going to be so much innovation and the opening of the floodgates for innovation here in the United States. And I think across the globe, because other countries are going to, follow the US's model. And I've been saying, I think it kicks off the super cycle. So proposed rules could force crypto firms to shift from passive yield to active compliant capital strategies. Stables, STBL's chief commercial officer Joe Volono said AI-driven treasury, lending, and collateral tools could become crypto's next major infrastructure layer. Banks worried about deposit flight may ultimately become participants in the stablecoin economy rather than competitors. So I think once the regulations in place, then everybody will have the same rules to abide by and know what the rules are, and they can start building. So I think Joe's right here. The banks will be forced to jump in, and many of them are already, building. If you caught my interview that I published earlier, guys, with the head of digital assets at Citibank, she's talking about they're using blockchain tech, tokenized deposits, stablecoins, and much more. So we know the banks, even though they're trying to slow it down because they're trying to catch up, they know this is the future and they're building with the tech. And speaking of stablecoins, StablR Euro and US dollar stablecoins depeg after a $2.8 million exploit. So this is not good. We still got a lot to do on the security front. So blockchain security firm Blockade said Sunday that the exploit had extracted $2.8 million so far. StablR said in an X post that it had identified an exploit and was working to contain it and minimize impact. Blockade said it suspected the cause of the exploit is a private key compromise of one owner on a multi-signature wallet used for minting stablecoin, which allowed one of the three participants to sign a transaction. So lots to still go, guys. We're still very early, right? And we know the Genius Act is past its law, but the enforcement, the building out is in the process of happening right now. But we're going to get there where these things are going to become less and less of an issue. Now, guys, I got to update you on Ondo Finance because the founder of Ondo, Nathan Allman, has unfortunately passed away. I met Nate last year in Q4 2025 at a Chainlink conference, and I interviewed him. A really nice guy, super smart. Obviously, he built an incredible project and company. Ondo's been doing incredible when it comes to tokenization and the integration from big institutions like JP Morgan and many others. So it's really sad to hear of his passing. We don't know how he passed. But he was very young, and it makes you think about life a bit, right? That you got to appreciate every day that you wake up and you're above ground, and be thankful and live in gratitude and much more. So really sad to hear this, and obviously I'm an Ondo token holder. I believe in this project. I believe we can do well. And it really sucks because Nate and I talked about doing another interview, once the winter was completed, and he was actually going to Hawaii for the winter to spend time there because he's from there. And we talked about it when he's back in New York, we would do an interview, but he's unfortunately passed away. So this is some sad news, but I think his legacy will continue here with Ondo, and the team will continue to build. And but really, really sucks there. Guys, that's the news. Let me know what you think. Leave your thoughts and comments below. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't as yet. Be sure to support the podcast by subscribing to my free email newsletter. It's on Substack. Link will be in the description. Be sure to grab a copy of my book on Amazon. It's available in paperback and digital. And check out my course at mycryptocourse.com. This is a comprehensive course that teaches you everything you need to know about crypto. You can use the code BEAR, BEAR, to get 50% off the price of the course. We got a big sale going on right now. So check it out, guys. Knowledge is power. Expand your knowledge around blockchain and crypto tech. All the links will be in the description. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you all later.